Hi, my name's Cecilia Puna, and welcome to this episode of Brave New Women. All around the world, there are amazing, ordinary women doing extraordinary things. Brave New Women is about giving those women a platform and a voice, and it's about changing the way that women are perceived. And it's a way of inspiring all of us to do the things that we've always wanted to do. I'm absolutely thrilled today to be speaking to Charlotte Oloya. Charlotte is the country director at the School of Life Foundation in Uganda, and I've already interviewed Annabelle Chauncey about setting up the School of Life Foundation. And today the foundation runs 3 schools. And I wanted to talk to Charlotte about her particular background and experience, how she ended up at the School for Life and how it has changed her life. So welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. I'm very excited to be on this podcast this morning.
Maybe, Charlotte, if we start at now, at the present. So could you tell me about your current role as country director and what it involves?
So as country director at School for Life here in Uganda, I'm responsible for ensuring that the strategic direction of the in-country operations are aligned to our vision and our mission, the vision of the mission of the organization at large, but also in particular ensuring that we, while we focus on our vision and mission, we have our children are prepared for the next generation of skills and of jobs. But also in doing that, just ensuring that we are scaling the work that we do to impact the biggest number of children that we can, while at the same time offering a quality education to them that pulls them out of poverty, not just for themselves, but for the generations that come after them.
Mm. And so how many children are there now in the 3 schools?
We currently have a little over 1,025 children in the 3 schools, and we go up to up to O levels, secondary school.
Mm-hmm. So that's 18, is it?
Yes, up to about 16 currently, and in about a year we'll go up to 18. We'll go up to 18.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And what is a typical day for you?
At work, my typical day starts at about 5 a.m. I'm a person of faith. I start with dedicating my day to God. Spend about an hour doing that. Between 5 and 6, between 5 and 6, between 6 and 6:30, I spend at least 30 minutes reading a book. I'm currently reading Tiny Habits and just how to develop those tiny habits. So I spend 30 minutes a day, and that would get me reading at least a chapter in a book that day. And then between 6:30 and 7, I'd like to probably do some water, have some affirmations, do something for myself as well, just to get me in the right space of mind to get into the day. Following that, from 7 to 8, prepare and be in office by 8 a.m. Usually start my day with just checking, what are the priorities to do for the day. That day, are there any meetings that I need to attend? Are there any issues that could have arisen the night before, the weekend before, that I need to address as well? And those would be my priorities for the morning before I settle down and do the tasks that come with the daily. What I have to do every day, thinking about, what the strategy looks like, for example, talking to the different people that report to me, ensuring that they are able to achieve on their tasks for the day, or if they faced any challenges, how can I support them to address those challenges as well? Yeah, so that's a bit about a day. I would probably leave office at about 5:30, 6 o'clock some days, depending on the day of the week. Yeah, and call it a day that's for the day, and that call it my work day. Yeah.
And what time do you get to bed in the evening?
Because I wake up early, I get to bed latest by 9 p.m. I get back home and I have a wind down, just spend some time with myself again. And then usually by 9 p.m. I am in bed trying to get at least 8 hours of sleep. Sometimes not possible, but sometimes I do manage to achieve that goal of 8 hours of sleep every day. Yeah.
And so it's a pretty full day.
is. Yes, it is. It is.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And tell me, how did you come to be working at the School for Life?
So I've always been passionate. Let me rephrase that. I started being passionate about education probably about 10 years ago, but I've always been passionate about helping the next generation of Ugandans just have a better life than we have. And so honestly, it was really by mistake that I came to work in education. I am a lawyer by training. And about 10 years ago, I had returned from a 1 year work experience, work exchange program in the UK, and I was searching for a job. And so as I was searching, somebody who knew me told me that somebody is looking for a temporary program manager to run an education NGO just to set it up. And after setting it up, then you can leave the job. And so I took it on temporarily. It was supposed to be 6 months. And I ended up spending 7 years at that job because I really discovered my passion. I discovered that, through education, I could be able to meet my personal goal of helping, the next generation of Ugandans just, live a better life than we have. And so moving on from that job, School for Life advertised for the country director position. And when I read about School for Life, the vision and mission just resonated with my own, vision and mission of using a quality education to pull people out of poverty using a quality education. And that just resonated with me. Very passionate about it, very passionate about delivering on it, but very passionate about ensuring that the 1,000 children that we have stewardship over, are definitely much better off than before they joined our schools. Yeah, so that's how I came to join School for Life. Yes.
And tell me about becoming a lawyer. What was the decision there? And
about becoming a lawyer. So my grandfather, my mother's father, my maternal grandfather was a lawyer, and he was a renowned lawyer in the city. And growing up, my mom always told us very interesting stories about, the work that he'd done, and he'd been a lawyer during very difficult times for Uganda as a country. This was during Amin's regime, and during Amin's regime when there were lots of killings, and he had defended, people who, in my mind at the time, were very innocent, and he'd stepped in to save their lives, and for me that was really noble. And my mom herself growing up, she'd always said, what, I always wanted to be a lawyer, but my education was interrupted. She didn't get to finish school. So she said, she used to tell me, if ever I had finished school, I would have been a lawyer. And I guess in my mind, it was, this is the only thing I can do. I was also really good at literature. I loved to read. So it seemed like the natural path for me to doing good in society. So even when I finished law school, I didn't go into criminal law or into commercial law. I went straight into human rights because, the law was a means to an end. It was a means to help, people to do better in society, to do good. And so, I found myself in the law because of my grandfather and my mother. Yes, but not practicing today, which is quite interesting.
And did you work in human rights at all?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I did work with an organization called African Center for Torture Victims. I also did work with the UN. Actually, the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights was my first job as a UN volunteer. And I was working in northern Uganda, an area that had been ravaged by war for over 20 years. And so it was good to, that was my first job, just getting in there and getting my hands, on the ground, just helping people who had struggled with the war and just trying to support, the realization of human rights in the north, and then moved into supporting into working with victims of torture, representing them before the Human Rights Commission, and then also worked in doing research in the UK. That 1 year work experience that I had, but was involved doing research for the African Court. So yes, I did work a bit in human rights, and even did my master's in human rights and democratization of Africa at the University of Pretoria for a year. And I thought that was the trajectory of my career at the time. Yeah, at the time. 10 years later, I tell a different story.
Tell me a little bit about your master's. I mean, I think that's fascinating about the democratization of Africa.
Yes, so it's a really, really interesting master's program. It's offered at the University of Pretoria Center for Human Rights. And what it does, it brings together 30 lawyers from across Africa. And over the course of a year, it's just to discuss about how we can use human rights, how we can use the African court, how we can use the African systems to ensure that human rights and democracy are at the forefront of democracy in Africa. Yes, so it's been going on for about 10 years now, over a little over 10 years, with 30 lawyers every year, ensuring that there's a lot of research and publication into what democracy can be like in Africa, and of course democracy and Africa. It's always a very interesting topic, but also about the systems. In Europe, there's the European Court. In Africa, we have the African Court as well. How we can ensure that they actually have systems that are working. Also talking about the African Commission itself, like the European Commission. How can we send cases to the African Commission and ensure that this is an arm of the continent that can also push for democracy across the continent. Of course, using the African Union as well, which is the overlying organization over all the other African Court, African Commission, and other bodies of the continent. Mm. Yes.
Yeah. How optimistic do you feel about democracy in Africa?
I'm very optimistic. I really am very optimistic. I think, we see that, with education of more of Africa's population getting more educated and getting exposed, and the fact that we have lots of social media out there as well, very, very optimistic that it will happen. I think if we count the number, they're not, I stand to be corrected, but I don't think there are many countries that actually don't hold elections. So there will be a question about how free and fair the elections are, but elections are actually going on, and there's campaigning that is going on across the continent. So I guess America and Europe that took time to get to where they are, as Africa with lots of inherent challenges of different ethnicities, of boundary lines being drawn without people necessarily agreeing to it. It's going to take us time to get there, but we will get there. I'm very optimistic that we will get there. We have a few growing pains right now, but we will grow, and as a continent we will grow, and it will get better. Yes.
Just you mentioned that you had been a lawyer for some of the victims of torture. You must have heard some pretty horrific stories, did you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It was a trying job. It really was a trying job. Just even the not only listening to the stories, but also the amount of time that it took for clients just to receive compensation and go before the court. Yes, the stories sometimes were horrific, but also access to justice being a bit slow many times was a bit challenging. I was very happy to get out of that. Yes.
One of the questions I had was when children. So at the moment, children at School for Life, they only go up to O levels, but they're going to be going up to A levels soon, so up to 18 years.
Yes.
What do you expect that most of those children will stay in Uganda, or do you think that they will leave? Or I'm just wondering how children who get a very high level of education in Uganda are then able to contribute back to the country and make sure that is then rolled back into the country.
Yeah. So for many of our children who will, finish A-level, I believe they will stay in the country. Of course, we can't say 100% of them will stay, but most of them will stay in the country and will be able to give back to the communities from which they've come. And that will be a way of, just plowing back into the community, bringing more resources into the community and supporting their families as well, to study and supporting their family, not only in terms of education, but but also in terms of an income, an extra income for them across Africa. And in every family, it doesn't matter if you're a rural family or an urban family or peri-urban family. We all have a person that we support. I think the South Africans call it black tax, but it's an African thing that you have. It's inherent. You have to give back somehow to somebody else. Within your society, within your ethnic group, or somebody you feel that needs your support, needs the support that you have. And so even with these children, they will go back into their communities. Even if they left the country, they would still, we have many Ugandans in the diaspora, and they still give back to their families. And what they give back to their families comes back into the community, and it comes back into the economy, and it comes back into the country. Yes, we are saddened by the brain drain, especially when it comes to skills or to professions that are highly needed, like medical professions, because we have a very low number of doctors as opposed to the need in terms of healthcare. But we also recognize that when children are educated, they're able, especially girls, they're able to give back to their families, they're able to give back to the community and make that community better. So I don't think 100% would stay, but the majority of them will be able to stay within the country and support their families and make sure that the next generation is better than theirs. Yeah.
Mm. And what difference has the School for Life made to the community around where it is?
Wow. And it's been a phenomenal difference. We've seen education for over 1,000 children. And what that means is that right now, their families, the families of those 1,000 children are able to have a better future because of that child that we are educating in that family. We also have community projects that we run that include medical camps where we partner with other organizations that can come and support the community. We've run dental camps. We've run eye clinics. We've run vaccination drives, including vaccination for HPV for our girls and for our children. Just being aware that cervical cancer, that the cases of cervical cancer are rising in the country. So we see an amazing impact within the community just by School for Life being there and bring in terms of education, but also in terms of the partners that are able to be pulled into the community and support total community development. Just by putting a school, for example, in one of the areas that we have our secondary and primary school, we see that the prices of land in that area just goes up because there's access to better social services in that area. And that means that there's more opportunity for economic activity for the people that live around that school. Those are other things that, just by offering a quality education and by being able to bring children together, that there's lots of other impact from School for Life. Of course, we cannot speak the fact that the quality of education, first of all, that has improved for those children is something that, when we start to talk about it, and when you talk to the children, you talk to the parents, you talk to the community, they're all very thankful that, School for Life exists and has been able to give them and their children an education. Without School for Life, probably many of them would not have been able to. If we look at the fact that schools offer a safe haven for many girls, particularly, keep them, making a decision to have children a little bit later because they are in school. And looking at what the pandemic has done right now and the rising cases of teenage pregnancy, we think of School for Life and think about the number of girls that we've managed to help postpone the decision to get pregnant because they are able to come to school, or the fact that we have a boarding facility or a school that provides a safe haven from different things out there that would push our children to get pregnant earlier than they would have. Just even opening their minds to the different possibilities out there. We talk to the girls these days and they say, no, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be, start a medical clinic. I want to be an IT specialist. I want to do a business. It's just amazing to see those things, and all that is all thanks. And this is not speaking as a country director, but this is speaking as a Ugandan, and just realizing the impact that the work of School for Life has done for the two communities that we serve, and just looking forward to scaling that impact, and just thinking, how much better will Ugandan children be able to be when we are able to scale to different communities and support them? Yeah.
A couple of questions. One is, what are the ambitions for the School for Life in the next 10 years?
Okay, so very ambitious that in the next 10 years, we want to impact on 10,000 children in the next 10 years.
Wow.
Yes, very, very ambitious. But we've just, and to realize that ambition, we know it's ambitious, but we also think it's achievable. We've just concluded the development of a 3-year strategy. And in the 3-year strategy, we're looking at scaling our operations to at least 3 more schools in the next 3 years, partnering with more organizations, not only civil society organizations, but also government schools that, work around the communities where we are. And the support can be in terms of, training their teachers, because we have highly skilled teachers, and we do lots of trainings for our teachers. So training their teachers as well, sharing the resources that we have with the government schools that are around us. And in that way, we are able to impact a wider community than we can in just our schools.
Fantastic.
But also partnering.
Fantastic.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, so partnering also with other civil society organizations, just to scale the number of children we are able to impact, just even in the next 3 years. It may not be through building building schools or acquiring. We know we'll only be able to do 3 because they are capital intensive, but we can partner with like-minded organizations. We can partner with government schools, and that means that we are able to scale our reach and ensure that, the quality of education for more children are able to get a quality education, and because we're able to share, our resources. So yeah, I believe it's very, very achievable to do that. Yes.
I really love that, the idea that you're training the government school teachers alongside your teachers, and then
yes.
So it's not just the School for Life schools that are getting better. It's not about being exclusive. It's about being inclusive and making sure that you're reaching. I just love that idea.
Yes. That's our goal for the next 3 years. The communities and everybody within that community, whichever school you go to, as long as there's School for Life presence, not only school but a presence, then we'll be able to share the resources that we have. That's in the terms of the teachers, partnerships with other organizations, and just ensure the community is getting better. Being inclusive, as you said.
Yes. And are there any particular children that have marked you somehow, or that their stories have really resonated with you?
Yes. 2 children have, let me say 3, to be inclusive. The first one whose story really resonated with me is a girl whose story reminded me of my mother's story. When I just joined School for Life earlier this year, I went into the community with our community department, and was just meeting different families, just to understand, the work that we're doing. And there was this girl called Brenda, and her mother, when we visited her, her mother was in the garden, and but she was at home. And so we talked to Brenda, and we were telling her about preparing to come to boarding school. She was going to be joining secondary school and the boarding, and just asking her if she'd been able to buy a few items to prepare to come for boarding. And while we were seated there, her mother joined us, and her mother told, was talking to Brenda and telling her, what, Brenda, there's everything that we can do, I will be able to do so that you can go to boarding school. The organization is meeting the costs of your education and everything else. All I need to do is buy, a few items so that you can join. And as the mother spoke, she reminded me of my own mother. My mother has sacrificed to get me to where I am today. And so as I sat there and listened to her, I just saw my mother, and I just remembered the stories of my mother, and how I think once my dad had lost his job. I was getting into A-level, and it was such a huge impact on us as a family. He was the breadwinner. My mother had never worked a day in her life. And so she sold her wedding rings to buy me clothes to go to A-level, because I think the school had changed the policy. We used to take clothes to school, like to put on after, when you remove your school uniform. After we're in boarding school, you'd remove your school uniform, and then you needed to wear your ordinary clothes. We'd call them ordinary clothes. And school changed the policy that ordinary clothes needed to be a black skirt and a white t-shirt. And at the time, my dad wasn't working. Getting school fees was hard. We were a family of 8. I was the youngest. I think my biggest sister was just joining university. It was very costly. My father was not taking care only of us, but, many people, like I said, always take care of somebody else. So many people in the village were relying on him to pay their school fees. And she said, and my daughter has to have everything that she needs. And she sacrificed. Just even getting this. I recall even just for A-level to get, because my dad didn't work for a while, and it took us about 3 years before he could sort out life. Just even paying school fees for A-level, I just remember my mother, she did a lot. She did really, really a lot.
What sort of things did she do?
Oh, God. How far will this podcast go? Oh, no, she did so much. So past, this was her wedding ring and her engagement ring, and past that, just because I'm just like, oh my God. I remember once, one evening we didn't have food in the house one evening. So it was very interesting, because we're living in one of the upmarket neighborhoods in the city. And just because we're behind a gate, people thought everything was good. But interestingly, I think there were for about a week, we had no food. And I think there were crates of soda or something. And I remember her calling, we had a depot that was near us, and she was just selling one thing after the other, and they'd sold so much, and there was now nothing left to sell. And I just recall that day, that was what was left to sell, empty bottles of soda, and that was to buy us food to eat that evening. We had no power because we couldn't pay the bill. And then I think 2 days after, I needed to go to school, and there was no school fees. So I recall we went to school with her, and because my grandfather, because he was he was the lawyer for that school that I went to in boarding, she based on that goodwill, she pleaded with the head teacher that they let me in without paying anything, and that she'd bring the money later. I don't know how she got the money, but she got the money somehow. She got the money. I don't know I think in my mind, I know she probably went to many of her sisters and just had to plead left, right, and center. but she got the money and I wasn't, because, at some point in time, they would call you on assembly and say, go back home because you haven't paid school fees. But she made sure I did not get sent back home. This was my final year in A-level before I went to university. And so she's just like, you know what, Charlotte, just study. I will get the school fees. So Brenda's mother reminded me of my mother because, that day when we met her, it was 2 p.m. It was hot. The sun was scorching hot. And she was in the garden digging. And she said, yes, I have to dig and make sure I get these beans and sell them so that Brenda can go to school. That was my mother. So I actually ended up telling them that, I'd take Brenda on just from the story of her mother. And I told my mother, Mommy, today, I called my mother that day and I told her, Mommy, today I met somebody who reminded me of you. Because she also told Brenda that, you have to study and make sure you come out of this place and, you go and have a better life than I have had. The exact same words my mother constantly told me, as I was growing up. Charlotte, you need to be better than I am. You need to ensure you finish school. You need to ensure you become that lawyer and make your money. You need to, the very same words. Yeah. So Brenda really touched me. Brenda's mother touched me. and hence Brenda. Yeah. Then, yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that parallel between the two mothers who would just do anything to get their children, their girls through school.
Yeah.
And who understand just how important it is, the education is.
Yes. Well, yeah, that was,
You said there were 3 stories.
Yes. I was just thinking I need to call my mother after this and just thank her once again. But, I'm seated here today because she chose to sacrifice quite a bit. So then there's Stephen. Stephen is one of our students in secondary school, and his sister has just finished primary 7, and she's a really, really smart girl. She's one of the best. She was one of the best in her primary 7 exams. And it's just a family that is quite resilient. They're a small family. They lived with their grandmother, but it's really, really difficult for them. But despite every challenge that is thrown at them, Stephen and his sister go to school, and they are so positive. They do not miss school. They have a single track mind about getting educated and ensuring that they move. They know that this is the opportunity they have to just make their lives better. There's nothing else. And when I look at Stephen and his sister, I'm just like, personal vision and school vision, they're just intersecting, and it's just an opportunity to help those children.
What sort of challenges do they have?
Oh, wow. Just name where they live, the type of house they live in, access to food or to land, to be able to grow that food, living in a child-hated household as well, their parents not being with them. So, everything to get to them is a challenge. They're different.
So they don't have parents with them?
They live with their grandmother.
Okay.
So not with their parents or their grandmother. And so, that is different from children who will have a mother or a father who are unable to meet their needs. But, as a grandparent we're much older they're much older in their life. They are not able to push as much as, my mother and Brenda's mother are able to push and, sacrifice for you. But, I just look at these 2 children, Nakaye and Stephen, and I'm thinking, wow. Amazing for you to overcome all the obstacles that are thrown at you and just say, no matter what, I will overcome and I will move forward. Yeah.
And I could imagine that the children like them would be, if they've got that resilience as adults, they will be.
Yes.
They will really be something. They will be the leaders.
Uganda's next generation. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they will be. They will be. They have an amazing story. Yeah. They've built up tenacity. They've built up resilience, and they fight no matter what. That is amazing. Yes. Yeah.
How has working with School for Life changed you?
I guess in certain ways. So just a bit about like the work I had done before, even the work that I'd done in human rights, wasn't as in depth. Yes, I went into the communities. Yes, I was able to listen to those stories, but it was in a different perspective. And then even the first education organization I worked with, it was in working with teachers to make teaching better within the classroom, improving pedagogy, not necessarily the curriculum. And so working with School for Life is actually seeing, in quotes, the end user, the real person that you are impacting, and listening to their story every day, and seeing them grow from this child who joins and is not confident, to a child who speaks really, really good English, who can confidently tell you who they want to be in the future, whether it changes or not, that is okay. To a child who says, no matter how much it rains, I will walk to school, or I will do this and that. So it's, in my mind, it's thinking, I'm really, really on the ground in the community, able to give a child, to give a family a better opportunity in life. If we think about the pandemic and think about the number of people that it has affected, people who've lost their jobs, like my own dad, who lost his job, and suddenly, you can't afford school fees. I think we were fortunate that my mother had rings to sell. There are families that don't have that. And being at School for Life, just in my mind, it makes it real that I really do have an opportunity to make children's lives better. I have an opportunity that I will not waste to change the next generation of Uganda's children. If that is just in fulfilling my personal vision and mission, but also in how I work. I've had to change the way I work, change the way I lead, change the way I manage. I've had to think about, how decisions that you make impact on not just, the management team, but, an entire ecosystem of people that support a community around which we work. And so, yeah, it's made me, I think a bit more. It's made me appreciate that I'm able to fulfill my vision and mission as well. It's made me thankful that, I'm using my life for good. I really am. And that's thanks to Annabelle. That I'm able to support people that, and think about it, and that, without School for Life, their lives are way different than they would have been. Through this pandemic, we've chosen. It's not been easy, but we have chosen to navigate the challenges that COVID-19 has thrown at us as an education institution. And hopefully that goes down to the team as well. We could have chosen to sit back and say, what, we'll just deliver home study packages to our children all through the 2 years. Schools have been closed for 2 years, but we have navigated. We've introduced Google classes for our children in the community, in an economy where the usage of internet is the smallest and is very expensive. But we've introduced Google classes and we've tried it. We've formed WhatsApp groups for our parents and for our children. We have had home learning actually take place to support children that are struggling. We've delivered home packages. We've done, exams. We've managed to go through an entire curriculum for our children just to ensure that the gains that we've made in terms of education are not lost in the 2 years that they have sat at home. And for me, that is, yes, I am resilient. Yes, I'm tenacious. But in being able to do this during COVID, when I had just joined the organization, it builds a different kind of personality within you, just to have to, think about how you move the blocks, or constantly are moving the blocks to ensure that, yes, our children are learning. Yes, the community is still receptive of us. Yes, we, our team, who, are impacted by COVID themselves, in terms of getting COVID, are still able to work, but they also still feel like they are cared for, as people, and just, thinking about that. So I think it's made me a better human being. It's made me a better leader. It's made me a better manager. It's made me a better person. It's made me a better Charlotte. I think I go to the end of this year, and we have three months to the end of this year. And if I just do an audit of who I am, just in terms of intellectually, because I've had to grow intellectually, in terms of spiritually, my spiritual life has grown, in terms of just thinking about, how we grow financially and how we scale. I have had to grow in those areas. In the five different capitals, in terms of how I am as a leader, I have had to grow. My life has greatly been impacted positively by working at School for Life in all the facets of my life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just going back to where we started at the beginning, when you about how you start your day, thinking about your faith.
Yes.
In a way, it's a realization of the prayers of your morning prayers.
Yes. So actually, because I was working at School for Life, I actually then are more intentional about my 5 to 6 a.m. prayers. Very intentional. I do not miss them. Monday to Sunday, 5 a.m. will find me talking to God. Mm-hmm. Every day of the week. I'm very intentional about that. And so it feeds into my, who I am as a person, into my vision, into my goals. It all fits in. I'm thankful that I joined School for Life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Charlotte, I've just got two last questions.
Yes.
Which I always ask. The first question is, how has it been for you being a woman? Has that been a positive, a negative? Has it had an impact, no impact?
Of course, it has had an impact. It's been both positive and negative. I was actually reflecting on this same conversation this weekend with a lady, one of our board members, and thinking about women and women leaders during COVID, and how we've had to navigate COVID as a female leader. I joined School for Life this year. I joined during a pandemic, and as a leader, you are then forced to make certain decisions that may be popular or may not be popular. And even as I joined, as a woman, they say there's a difference between female-led organizations and organizations that are led by men. I think I lead more from the heart as a woman. I lead more from a point of understanding you and seeing you as more than just a person, but I see your family. I see the challenges that you faced probably the day before. I see you. I really, really see you. And what that does is that I'll be a bit slower in decision making in certain elements, because I want to see. I want to make sure that when I make a tough decision, I have considered everything about you, and I'm comfortable with this decision, because I want to do unto you as I would want somebody to do unto me. So as a person, I would want somebody to see me, to see that I didn't come to work today because my child fell sick, and see that. But also see the fact that I shouldn't consistently use that my child fell sick as a reason not to come to work. And so, obviously starting as a leader, people want to understand and see, how they can test your boundaries. And being a female leader also, comes with that, and seeing how far can we test your boundaries. One of the leaders once made a comment that when we were having a difficult conversation, and we were three in that conversation. There were two gentlemen and I was the only lady, and they were having the conversation with them amongst themselves, and I was sitting as a bystander, really to listen in. And when they weren't coming to a conclusion, and I stepped in, and the comment from one of the gentlemen was that, I like your motherly I like your motherly view in what we've talked about. and he didn't think about it. I thought about it, and I thought, oh my God, I'm a leader, but because I don't think they tell a man that that's your fatherly view of you as a leader in an organization. I chose to ignore. I had made the point, and it was taken. But as a female leader, that is what you get, and as a female leader in Africa, that is what you get. As a female leader of a certain age also, that is what you get. And so I've had to learn how to navigate that. On certain days, you're told you're not tough enough. On other days, you are too tough. Even when you speak, my voice is deep and yeah. But on certain days, you're too authoritative or not authoritative enough. You're constantly, I guess, as a female, what I'm trying to say is, as a female African leader, a millennial in your 30s, you have to work 3 times as hard to get to a certain point, which is different from a male leader, and you're constantly every decision that you make is looked at from different angles as a female leader. So I've learned that yes, I have to work 3 times as hard and put in all that effort to ensure that either a point is being made or they don't think of me as making that decision from a motherly perspective. Very interesting, but yeah. Yes,
that's
but
interesting.
Which is also good. Yeah.
That's interesting because I'm doing a seminar next week about exactly that, about the fact that women are either too aggressive or not aggressive enough, or they're too tough or they're not tough enough. So it's just that we're women. So.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. And that women across the continent, across the world, not just the continent, are just faced with grappling with the same issue. It doesn't matter where you are or how old you are, you still grapple with the same issues, as women. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm even thinking of using what you just said in my seminar, using the recording and just say, this is happening all around the world.
Yes, it is. It is. It really is. It is, yes.
And Charlotte, my last question is, is there anything that we've missed? Is there a particular message that you've got for people who are listening? Is there anything you'd like to add? Just anything at all?
I don't think there's anything we've missed, but just I guess a message is, I love the job that I'm doing. I love that I wake up every morning and I'm able to support, through the job that I'm doing, I'm able to support children or families that otherwise would not have had an opportunity to get not just an education, but a quality education, to ensure that, we're driving them out of poverty and, just getting anybody else out there that, would love to support our cause. It would be great to partner with different people, with different organizations, just to support our cause and just to see, that many other, Ugandan children out there, get a quality education. I think we'll have a much better world because of that. Yes. Yeah.
Charlotte, it's been just a joy to speak to you this morning. And I think the School for Life are incredibly lucky to have you and to have someone who is so dedicated, and not only dedicated to learning, but also for other people, but also to learning herself and to growing and to changing in the role. So I wish you all the best. I hope that within 10 years, School for Life will be teaching 10,000 children, and I've got no doubt that you will be. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you too, Cecilia. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's been lovely speaking with you.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Brave New Women. Certain podcast sites such as Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Podchaser let you leave a rating and a review. The more ratings and reviews we get, the more people will listen and the more these women's stories will be shared. So I'd really appreciate it if you could. Thanks for listening.